Can everyone hear me? Oh, I can hear me, so I'm sure you guys can. It's like a start of every Teams call ever. Hi everyone. Speaking of LNER, I'm Aya. I'm a light in my eyes software developer here at Softwire. Going to be talking a bit about Kotlin as a teaching language today. So a bit of context about what went into this. I, over the last summer, trained a group of 6 software development interns, and the primary language we used on that project was Kotlin. My first time using Kotlin was right here at Softwire 3 years ago as an intern. Just come full circle. It's my favorite language as a result, and I'm excited to talk a bit about using it as a teaching language and a first professional language with you today. So first of all, a bit of context on the project. It was for a train operating company. Sarah briefly mentioned this. We built a multi-platform mobile application for LNER, London North Eastern Railway, and it's an existing application, a mobile project written in Kotlin, iOS, TypeScript. Specifically, the Android side is all written in Kotlin. And the interns were working on a real code, real project for a real client, solving a real non-trivial problem and understanding their needs as a result. So this wasn't just some random intern project, it was a real thing for a real client. So it really gave them that experience. So let's talk a bit about the interns first. So we had 6 interns in my team, varying skill levels and various coding backgrounds, one with industry experience specifically in functional languages, Haskell, Erlang, and a bit of Scala, if I recall correctly, and one with a lot of programming experience in Java specifically. That will come up. One without much programming experience at all, one with experience specifically in iOS mobile development primarily, and 5 of the 6 interns who are currently on a CompSci or adjacent course, so all very technical students. Weirdly enough, the one intern with industry experience is the one who's not on a CompSci course. It's just funny how that works out. A bit about how we structured the internship before we dive into it. It was an intro to software dev for 1 week. 1 week making a Kotlin multi-platform practice project, which was basically building a live train departures board using the LNER API. And then we did 8 weeks of an agile dev cycle, followed by a final presentation to the client led by the interns. So many of them were using Git even for the first time. Not one of them even knew how to open a pull request, so this is the level we were at to start with. We began looking at Kotlin basics, fizzbuzz, gilded rows, all of your basic starting katas, all the way up to then eventually writing straight up coroutines and all of the advanced Kotlin stuff, Kotlin stuff in their practice project. Yeah, and it was a functioning mobile application using an existing API, and we put these skills to use on the real project. So let's jump into it. What were the tough bits of this? What did I have to learn? So, thank you. We're not writing Java. Really important. I know we've got to talk about exactly this later. Coroutines were really tricky for them at first. The idiomatic Kotlin and null safety was a big sticking point. SEAL classes and data classes, very unfamiliar to people who haven't used Kotlin really before, and how they approached it was really interesting. And then the whole functional programming and lambdas. When you look at Kotlin and you come into it thinking it's Java, you have a very object-oriented mindset, and forgetting it can do all these higher-order functional programming things as well is hard for them to get their head around sometime. But we got there in the end. This is exactly how I felt by the 10th week. I was like I'd scaled a mountain, just reached the summit and taught them all how to do all this incredible Kotlin stuff. So we're going to dive a bit into each individual thing on this list here, the challenge, the strategy I took to teaching it, and then the real-world application we used actually on that project with the interns. So let's start with coroutines. They found this difficult, especially if they didn't have experience in asynchronous programming. When you're writing your basic university projects or personal projects, you're not really going to be multi-threading too much, especially in a mobile application where a lot of things have to really sit on that main thread. Going asynchronous and using those tools was really tricky for them at first. So rather than starting with heavy theory, I figured let's actually just have them write it. Rather than just telling them how it works, let's make them just do it. So I gave them some small tasks on their practice project, such as making the network calls to demonstrating launch, asyncs, and suspends, even if some of those aren't heavily used really in production. They were really good for them to learn and understand kind of how the coroutines work at the back end. And so they were heavily featured as a part of that project. And ultimately, in the real-world application, we use these for managing background processes, particularly for the real-time data gathering with a back-end key-value pair database. So this will come up. We integrated a Firestore key-value pair database, and we did a lot with that. It was the core foundation of what we built this feature in, and yeah, it was all handled with coroutines asynchronously in the background, so the user wasn't sat watching a loading screen or a white screen while it was all hanging and talking to the Firestore database. That was great. We got there. Let's talk about idiomatic Kotlin and null safety. Transitioning to the idiomatic Kotlin's patterns of Kotlin, like null safety, like your smart casts, it was really tough for them, especially those more accustomed to Java. So I emphasized this really early on. We're talking, they're writing FizzBuzz, I'm code reviewing FizzBuzz, and I'm emphasizing these things they can be using early on, especially in null safety and scope functions like let and apply. And reinforcing them really early as a part of a code review really helped them solidify these foundational skill sets and internalize them so they don't have to think about them, they're just writing them. And we ended up using that as part of our, again, data store management, so that when we're implementing these features to communicate with the Firestore database, we're doing it in a very safe way. If we're not getting data back, it's all null safe. And they actually found a few bugs in the existing production app even that we raised with the main dev team here at Softwire, and the interns raised pull requests to fix those using these principles. So I'm really proud of them for that. Let's talk about sealed classes and data classes. This was really hard, especially for those really used to object-oriented heavy languages. So we looked at this quite early on by demonstrating the practicality of the sealed classes, especially when modeling UI states and network responses. Again, we're mostly talking with a database here. Network responses are really important, and we want to be modeling these in our data classes. So we actually, at the very start of the bootcamp, before they even started writing their code, we pulled up real examples from the main LNER code base to show them where they're doing this and reinforce why they need to learn this in the bootcamp. It was a bit of a struggle in some cases. We'll take a look at an example shortly, but in the end they got there, and they actually used some really nice sealed classes to make some distinct system models, especially for the database calls. We built an entire really nice database structure around these. So here's the big one. Seriously, we're not writing Java, okay? And this is something we really struggled with. This is code that was submitted to me in a pull request. So I'm seeing some winces in the crowd here. This is Kotlin. This will compile. This will run. But this isn't Kotlin, right? This is Java principles. If I had more time, what I wanted to do was some audience participation, maybe do an impromptu code review. But we can all see what the problems are here, right? We're declaring our attributes. We're using straight-up constructors where not needed. But here's my favorite one. Look at these getters and setters, right? What the intern had clearly done is made a getter and setter the way you would in Java, tried to compile it, got the compilation error, this method already exists, had no idea what to do about that, just stuck an underscore on the end, fixed it, it works, wonderful. This was really interesting. This would have been impressive if I wasn't just a little bit miffed, but it's very funny. So I spotted these quite early on, especially in the multi-platform practice project. Had some whiteboarding sessions, knowledge sharing, taught them why we don't want to be doing this. Let's get out of these Java habits just because we're writing in a language that compiles down to Java. Let's not be writing Java. So we went through some whiteboarding sessions, some knowledge sharing, a couple rounds of code review, and we got this. Beautiful, right? Now this is Kotlin, right? This is what we're looking for. I was so pleased when we finished the practice project and we went into actually writing the production code for the main app, and this is the kind of stuff I was getting by the end, showing it really can be done to like turn them into Kotlin developers, even if they really want to write Java so bad. So let's talk about how we integrated all of this. So these interns were not just learning Kotlin, right? They were also contributing meaningful production quality code, and that's something we emphasize a lot here at Softwire. Little plug there. By the end of the program, the interns wrote code handling key aspects such as data processing, real-time API integrations, coroutines, null safety, idiomatic Kotlin, all of that, right by the end of it, and it was meaningful, and they were great PRs by the end. I remember that I got my first PR in week 7 that required almost no comments from me, except a few nitpicky bits, and I was so happy with them. And yeah, actually, if it wasn't obvious, I spent this whole time focusing really hard on using code reviews to assess these idioms, identify the anti-patterns they're using, and encourage the clean, maintainable code. Again, something we really care about a lot here, and I wanted to get that into our interns. Let's talk about the results of that. So by the end of the internship, even the beginners were working with more complex Kotlin features, coroutines and higher order functions. And the advanced interns were genuinely delivering production-ready code and contributing meaningfully, not only to our little project on the intern side, but to the main LNER project as well, because they just really got there with it. Each intern individually had noticeable impact on the project. They all became experts in different areas of the code base, from the caching to the database to the various coroutines that we were running. And it frankly just benefited from their fresh perspectives. Again, they were new to the language, new to professional software development, and a language such as Kotlin, which was so easy for them to just pick up and let them focus on contributing rather than just struggling to write code, really helped. So my final takeaways from this was that with the right structure, Kotlin's advanced features can be accessible to developers at any level. I truly mean that. One of our interns really just did not know how code works, and by the end of it was an absolute gem. Mentoring on real-world projects like reinforced the importance of writing maintainable and idiomatic code, especially when onboarding these new developers. And most importantly, reshaping Java-focused developers into better Kotlin devs isn't as difficult a pipeline as you might think. It took me 1 day with my Java intern, and it was really great. That's everything I've got to say. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, I saw your hand go up first. Sorry, hi.
Hi, yeah, thanks for the presentation. I was going to ask, there's a Haskell developer or functional programmer.
Mm-hmm.
Notice any different people coming from different backgrounds, or they pick up quickly, or did they want to approach it a different way?
So with this particular intern, it was hard to judge because he had also had previous experience in the industry. It's really hard to judge if he was just picking it up well or if he was just a good coder. That said, I never had to beat any of these object-oriented approaches out of him or anything like that. And especially when it came to using the higher order functions, the more functional parts of Kotlin, he just sailed through them. It was really great. Yeah. Hi.
I mean, multi-threading is never easy for beginners and so on. Do you think that fast-forwarding past all of the other knowledge in other languages and just going straight to coroutines actually was beneficial?
It certainly wasn't not beneficial, I guess, or a hindrance, I guess, is the word I would look for there. So what I was working against was a clock, ultimately. We only had them here for 10 weeks, and I really wanted to get them into doing it. I wouldn't say it was straight up beneficial. There could have been benefits from going from the foundational knowledge, going more through the theory. But we wouldn't have really had time to do that, I feel, and I wanted to get them writing code on the production-ready app as soon as possible. So yeah, I don't think it was certainly any major hindrance to it, but I won't swear by it as the best approach, especially when having more time to work with. Yeah, no problem. Anything else? No, wonderful. Right, thank you all so much.